about Gartner, let's talk about Microsoft. How about the home entertainment industry? The home entertainment industry has left tape, what, 10 years ago? Okay? Yet we depend on tape, in many cases, to protect the very data that our jobs depend on. Or else someone who tried to restore from tape and could not. If you want the links, by the way, you can just Google it. You can see what Microsoft, you can see what Gartner says. Don't take my word for it. This is what they say. So if you're still on tape, I would encourage you to reconsider. But if you insist on using tape, okay, and you may at the end of the day, then at least follow the ISO standard. And this is the ISO standard for magnetic media. And you can Google it. By the way, this presentation I think is available to anyone that wants it. As a result, at least follow this standard. But truth and reality is you couldn't. There's no facility I've seen in the data center world as of recent 10 years is able to do these things today in an environmentally clean world. Challenges to data protection and recovery. Well, our first challenge are human beings. How many failures actually happen because somebody inadvertently wipes away a file? And then you get the job of recovering it. Okay? And all of a sudden, it doesn't go back to the user that deleted it. It goes back to you who has to recover it. And what if you can't? Is that a mark against your capabilities of being able to recover a necessary file? Well, it depends how far up the ladder the request comes from. Okay? So viruses propagating. I think we'd all agree that we have a appearance of security throughout the industry. Would we agree to that? We have an appearance of security. There certainly are enough products out there. But I come to the fact that if we really do have a secure environment, U.S. government just wouldn't have invested $44 billion to reinvest in their security systems, right? I mean, those products have been around for years. Why weren't they good enough? Okay, we know they're getting more sophisticated. So what does this have to do with data recovery? Well, I've got a healthcare organization that had to go back over 90 days to get a point-in-time file because everything was corrupted up until that point with a worm. Worms don't announce themselves day one. They're latent, they're stealth, and when they do happen, it's unannounced, and all of a sudden you can find yourself peeling through successive backups for weeks and months to find something that's not been infected. I ask a rhetorical question. I wonder how much data that we're backing up today that actually is infected. Do we really know? Okay. Legislative requirements, DR requirements. If you've got a DR plan, are you on different power grids? Okay? So what's the separation of the power grids that you have to work within? So if utilities go out of business, at least the other side is still working off a different power grid. You know, those can be pretty complex and overlaid. It's like plugging into multiple outlets in your home. It could still all be on the same switch. So what's happened that's really even making this more of a stretch? Well, disk capacity, look what's happened to disk capacity since 1990. But then look what's happened to Ethernet bandwidth. So how are we transporting that data? You're getting more data to back up and recover. You're still dealing with the same time window if it's not even shrinking, right? We're all working in a shrinking backup window because of online usage, 7/24, 365. I'm sure most of you here are carrying a PDA of some type. I'm sure most of you look at that over the weekend and sometimes in the evening. You know, there are people who are communicating to us on a 7/24 basis, and they expect response. We no longer have, if we ever did have, an 8 to 5 job, okay? We are 7/24, 365. Complexity, rising operational cost, bridging the gaps. What gaps do we have to bridge? Well, specifically in your world, you guys don't typically throw much away. You have to really utilize the resources you've been given. And it's not uncommon to see many of these different types of operating systems and applications in municipalities. It's not uncommon to see multiple types of backup products to accommodate these, not one universal product. That adds more complexity to your recovery process. So finally, let's get around to the 7 deadly sins, okay? What we're looking at here is really the starting point. I think we'd all agree the starting point is in the system state. It's in what we call the bare metal. And what consumes on that C drive, if you're in the Microsoft world, unless you're using dynamic disk, but I'm sure most of you best practices are using your applications, your operating systems in the C partition, okay? So if we take a look at this and we say these are the primary elements that go into the bare metal recovery, and if we say that's an 8-hour job, whatever we can do to reduce this process is to our advantage, okay? How about testing? Do you have time to actually do testing beyond looking at the catalog or pulling up a file? How often do you actually do a full restore to find out if that entire file can be restored? No time to plan for DR, no ability for dissimilar servers, off-site copies, replicating and not vaulting, and there's a difference. We agree to that. Replicating is exactly what it means, but point-in-time vaulting is a system state file recovery of everything you have at that point in time in successive periods. So if you have to go back to multiple periods, you're able to do that without going back into an incremental world that has a start to the latest date that all has to be pieced back together. You've heard terminology in your world of your master data set, your incrementals, your differentials. There's a huge difference in that when you start splitting up the word differential versus incremental. Incremental is exactly what it implies. It's increments of your backups. In a differential, it's appending the differentials into your master, so you're doing a global recovery and not going through all those pieces. I think we'd agree that a differential type of approach is going to be a lot more efficient in a recovery process. And inflexible solutions. Microsoft does not own the world. I think we'd agree to that. Bill Gates would like to think he does, and my hat's off to him. He's kept me employed for 20 plus years, and I thank Bill for that. But at the same time, what I would like to say is that you've seen introductions of other products in your environment. You've seen VMware come in, have you not? You've seen Citrix come in, and Microsoft offers opposing products to those, but yet it gets down to a best of breed selection. I'm sure some of you are using Hyper-V, but I'm sure probably more of you are using VMware. I'm sure some of you are using Terminal Server, but I think most of you, if you're doing that, are probably using Citrix. Why? Best of breed products. And so that's really what we're focusing on here, is a world that has many components to it, yet are as equally important to one to the other in a recovery process. How physically secure is your backup media? Okay, here's an example. This is a lowly landscaping company. Person's on surveillance camera, breaks in, does one thing, walks out with a tape. That's all they did. Didn't go through any drawers, didn't look for anything else, just simply walked out with a tape. What was on that tape? Was it payment card information? Yes, that was on the tape. Did it have to be current? No. Does your tape retention process or media retention, whichever you're doing, are you cataloging all of those? Do you have a lock and key catalog process? Or if one was missing, would you even know it? Okay? Remember, age is not the problem. By the way, try to dispose of Mylar today. It's hazardous material. Okay? I was at a healthcare center. They were in the process of trying to destroy 300 tapes because they went out of cycle. Okay? But the problem was that the regular conventional waste management didn't want that material. A special organization to come in to deal with that hazardous material. Here's how you can secure those tapes. You can call those ladies, and they'll be glad to come in. They're armed and ready, and very willing to help you secure your facilities. Did you say your backup system uses Microsoft? Not sure I heard that, but you know, if you're on a tape-based system, you probably are, okay? Well, Microsoft convinces me every 2 weeks that it's not a secure platform, okay? They announce things that people knew 6 months before that they finally patched. So if you are using Microsoft for your backup system, which is your main repository for your information, then I'd suggest you reconsider. Take a look at BackupExec. You can just Google it. That's all. And all of the known security elements related to this particular crop. You could go to a managed backup service. You could throw it all over the wall.